Hello, Jeffrey.
Hey, Dor.
How's it going?
Oh, it's good. Hanukkah is over, and over here it is now Christmas season, which is a complicated time to have Jewish kids.
Tell me more.
Well, it's the classic, like, having explained that we don't celebrate Christmas. Like, my son asked my wife, is Santa Claus real? And Alex says to him, no, Santa Claus is not real. And I'm like, whoa, 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 you can't say that. Like, he's going to go to school with all his Christian friends and be like, Santa Claus isn't real. And then, like, their parents are going to all come to my house holding pitchforks and torches, being like, these Jews said Santa Claus isn't real and they ruined Christmas for our pure little children. That's my fear.
So now you're anxious about a little kid ruining Santa for people? Oh my God.
I'm just, it's my generational traumatic, like, pogrom riddled history, like, coming to play. My name's Jeff. I'm calling in from California.
My name's Dor, and I'm joining you from London.
Out of 16 million, we are two.
Two freaked out Jews. I had a conversation with my wife about the tooth fairy. Do you keep the tooth fairy? Like, do you tell kids that there's a tooth fairy?
We haven't gotten there yet. All the baby teeth are intact.
See, my view on the tooth fairy is like, I don't want the kids to think that the tooth fairy gave them the present. I want that honor that I gave you the present.
You want the credit.
I want the credit, exactly. I want the credit. I'm like, why a magical creature gave you a present? She's like, oh, you can't, it's important to keep the magic alive. I'm like, I said to her, look, I'll agree to keep the tooth fairy, but then we have to get rid of God. Pick your magical creature.
Your kids are going to grow up thinking that the tooth fairy is God.
Well, make it up as you want.
All right. Okay. I don't want to be like a wet blanket here, but we got to get on track and just address this terrible week we've had. There was a night where 10 Israeli soldiers died, and then the awful, horrific news that we got over the weekend.
You're talking about the three hostages.
The three hostages that were mistaken for Hamas and killed with friendly fire from Israeli troops is just such a tragic story, and so it just breaks my heart. And it's just, imagine how exhilarating and happy we would have been had the story had been three hostages rescued by these soldiers, but instead it was just the
was the worst outcome. And I think quite, especially the circumstance around it, them being mistaken for terrorists, them, that's what the commentary is, that they had like sort of a white flag as well, which goes against the rules of engagement.
I mean, how devastating it must be for the soldiers who made this mistake, but I mean, it's going to be looked into. It's going to be scrutinized, and hopefully it can be a learning lesson moving forward in this impossible task of finding a way to like recognize who's a hostage in this battlefield.
And I think from the little evidence, the little information, that they've released is that, the rules of engagement weren't followed, but the area itself was meant to have no civilians in it because there's been operations there all the time. And I'm sure these soldiers, they've been stuck in Gaza for like 2 months now. And they probably, I don't know which unit, if they were part of the units, they probably lost their friends, so they're probably on edge anyway. People, Israel wants to have a moral army, and it wants to have an army that follows the rules, that follows rules of engagement, that doesn't hit civilians on purpose, which we don't. That's literally in the code of conduct. And therefore we hold ourselves to a higher regard, and this is why it's bad from an operational point of view that this happened, but obviously even more tragic that it's actually hostages. And
I had pain in my heart that it was reminiscent of how I was feeling on October 8th when the story was coming out.
And you know what? It's also because every hostage that gets released is a miracle, and it's so difficult now.
Imagine having three rescued by the army. The high would have been as high as the low that we're feeling, and that's it's just part of it.
And look, I'm saying all these things about the rules of engagement, and it's a tragic operational failure, but I also feel for the soldiers that they thought they were doing the correct thing. Clearly they weren't. They might have been scared for their lives. You don't really know what's going on in someone's head who's been there for so long, and to realize what they've done by accident, because accidents do happen. There's always friendly fire incidents. I can't imagine what's going through their head. I hope that they have been taken out of there and are getting the help they need now, because it's horrific for them.
Yeah.
You know, just like all of us, but even worse for them. So I think there's tragedy all around here.
Okay, this brings up my official question for the episode. And it's not an easy one. It's something that my wife and I debated in the bathroom last night while we were brushing our teeth. And I think it's a question that a lot of people are asking right now. I think it's a national question within Israel. And it's something we've discussed before. But under the current circumstances, I think it's worth revisiting. Here's the question. Is the priority to free the hostages, or is the priority to destroy Hamas?
So certainly, presently, the hostages are the number one priority. Look, the life expectancy of someone in Gaza, let alone hostages, let alone people that were taken there injured, you don't know what conditions they're being, well, we know they're being treated badly and in very bad conditions, probably a lot of them, with food supplies running low, medicine supplies, you know, every day cuts their life expectancy down. So,
but what about the hostages' families are like hunger striking in front of the Knesset, so they clearly don't think that Israel is acting in a way to release with the hostages in mind right now. And
I mean,
maybe they're not.
I don't know. It depends how you look at it. I mean, you asked what do you think I think is the number one priority. I think we have to get the hostages out.
Okay, I agree with you. We have to get the hostages. That's where I stand too. But I'm asking, what is the government doing? What is the war cabinet doing? How do they feel about it? I know you're not in the government, but what do you think?
I'll say something really controversial. I believe, and I don't have evidence for this, but I think that some people are calling for, let's go attack Hamas. That's number one, and we'll forget about the hostages. You know, we'll get them later, kind of thing. And actually, no, I do have some evidence for this. It's not true. There was I forgot her name, Tali Gottlieb, I think her name was, member of parliament from the Likud party, that shouted at the army for releasing the information that the army shot these citizens, these hostages.
For being honest.
Yeah. But what is her mindset here? Her mindset, and some people on the right wing of Israel have a mindset that the war is more important than the hostages, because they believe that as soon as the hostages are out of Gaza, the war will stop. And for them, the most important thing is, let's go kill Hamas, let's go get our greater Israel, take over Gaza. That's what we should do. And I think that the more the hostages stay there, the more the legitimacy to continue fighting there is.
And so you're saying if I asked these Likud ministers my question, they would say our objective is to beat Hamas, not to get the hostages back. That's your guess.
Yes, I would. Again, they can say whatever they want, but I would.
And their actions. And do you think the actions of the war cabinet are reflecting the Likud government, or do you think the actions of the war cabinet are more centered and more level-headed?
I think the war cabinet is more balanced. I think that they are realizing that they need to use the military to free the hostages. There is no actual. They're using it as a tactic. Now, in hindsight, 5 years from now, you can debate how good of a tactic it was, but again, everything in hindsight, you don't know. At the moment, they believe that the best way to push Hamas into negotiation, which did work, actually, for the first round of hostage releases, is the military. Now, we'll find out in the future if that was the correct assessment. We definitely know that the first release wouldn't have happened without military pressure. So the question is what is now?
I will say that I am torn about would I rather see a Gaza without Hamas at the sacrifice of our hostages, or would I rather
But I don't think.
Of course, best case scenario is that we get the hostages back and eliminate Hamas. Obviously.
No, but Jeff, you have to remember, if you're only talking about if I have 24 hours and I can only do one, fine. This is a hypothetical, theoretical question.
Well, that's the hypothetical.
Yeah. In reality,
because we do have a finite amount of time. we do have a finite amount of time because there is pressure even from America. There's been ramblings about this war needs to end by the end of 2023, and that's like.
So let me tell you what I think a war ending looks like. Israel is going to do some kind of gesture to end the war. I pull some troops out, blah blah blah. Are there still going to be airstrikes? Yes. Are there still going to be special forces to go in? Yes. They'll create a sort of a buffer zone on the border. They'll build proper army bases to defend. But they'll say, yeah, we pulled back, whatever. So the war will change. So America can sell it to their allies. Yeah, look, we managed to calm them down. But in reality, the war will just shift to a different phase. It won't be as intense as it is now, but we will still be going in full operations in Gaza for the foreseeable future. We can rescue the hostages now, and we can still keep hitting Hamas until we finish them. They won't exist there. That's a fact. That's a existential question for Israel. So I don't care what the international community really says here.
I think that this week's tragedies are a good glimpse at why Hamas did this rampage to begin with. Imagine how our misery is their pleasure, and we are miserable right now. So it's a glimpse. They like seeing us killing our own. Like, it's what they wanted. They wanted us to just like be weighed down in the murky devastation that they created.
I think that's why it's important that Israel stays united. It's not helpful for these politicians to come out with weird things, because that's what Hamas's plan is. This is what terror does.
It's also to their delight. Hamas's delight is that these like kind of hardline Likud politicians are saying crazy things. What a delightful thing! What a little gift for Hamas that they're doing.
Because it hurts Israel internally. It hurts it abroad. Their tactic, Hamas's tactic, is they know they can't beat Israel on the battlefield. They wanted to kill. They want to cause terror. They want to get hostages. They want to create extremism inside Israel. They wanted Israel's society to attack themselves, to have arguments. They wanted the world to attack Israel. They wanted Israel to invade Gaza. So we inadvertently kill civilians. They wanted us to get into situations where people die. This is all part of their plan. The only plan that hasn't worked for them is that they miscalculated, and they will not be in Gaza after this war. That's it.
I hope so.
It's a fact.
It's
a fact. True. I can guarantee it.
Dor, I worked on a short documentary of an Israeli and a Palestinian smoking a joint for peace, and I had a Palestinian man who was in this video, and he was a very gentle soul, a good person, and when we weren't filming, we were having lunch, and this Palestinian man said to me that he was referencing Batman, the one with Heath Ledger. Which one was that?
The Dark Knight. Great film.
He quoted a line from it. You probably know it. It was said by the mayor of Gotham City in it. And it was something along the lines of,
you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Yeah, it's said by Harvey Dent, actually.
Sorry.
The district attorney of Gotham City. Because, spoiler, Harvey Dent becomes Two-Face afterwards. So
he told me that this is the tactic, it's the Palestinian mindset to do to us. He said it to me. He had like such a little, like, sinister little grin on his face when he said it to me to like gauge my reaction. And you know what? I see what they're doing, but it's not going to work. Right?
It's working. It's working at the moment. It's a good tactic. And we should not fall for it internally as Israel. We should not, fight within each other politically. But we should certainly be aware of it, what it does to us in the world. So, it's a good tactic, and it's working.
God damn it, Batman.
It doesn't mean, by the way, to say that we are becoming the villain. But he wasn't talking about, like, that you become the villain. It was also people perceive you as the villain. Because if we go through the Batman analogy, with what happens, I'm ruining the film for people, but people should watch it. That
the film's from 2003.
I know.
Good.
2008. But I'm very particular. It's a great film. But what happens in the end is that Batman says, I can take it on to be the villain. I'll be the villain for people because people have to hate someone, but I'm going to do it for the right reasons. So
I think we saw this movie together.
We did. I organized a whole bus to see it. I was so excited from the kibbutz to go see it.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, so I'm really into this film.
Wow, just full circle.
But I think that the point of that is that even though Batman at the end is perceived to be the villain, he isn't. He's doing the actions that are necessary to be done, and Israel is now doing the action which is necessary. It's necessary to get rid of Hamas,
right? And this is the folly of the mindset. This is the folly of their plan.
Yeah, but this is the
audience
in
the end knows.
This is the problem. You have to.
Yeah.
Israel now is not the villain. It's playing the villain. Across the world. That's the theater. That's what Hamas wants us to look like. But we are doing the correct action by getting rid of Hamas, who's stopping any form of peace process. They don't recognize. They don't care about their own people. We need to get rid of them. So be it. We will be the Dark Knight. We will be the Dark Knight, and we will be at the end of the day. We will be victorious and do the right thing.
Cool. All right. So we spun his analogy on its head for him. So, do you have a question prepared, Dor, for this week?
Yeah, so I thought I'd start with the story. It was, as you mentioned, the end of Hanukkah. And in the area which I live, we have a sort of community menorah set up by Chabad. And sadly, on the last night of Hanukkah, on the last day of Hanukkah, on Thursday, somebody vandalized it and kicked it down and broke it. They quickly fixed it, and there was a message sent out on Twitter for people to come, and the member of parliament for the area came, and also faith leaders from the church, the local mosque, and the council came, and it was a very sort of a very sad moment. Obviously, that this kind of, as we all know, anti-Semitism is growing, and the people felt that this was acceptable to do. But it was nice that we all came and took a stance and lit up the menorah on that last night, showing there is still light, and we're still hopeful. But it links to my question, because I wanted to ask, which is a really hard question. I think it's something that's going to be evolving in our discussions. What is the future of the Jewish diaspora? How does it look? How do we fix our situation?
Interesting question, Dor. And something comes to my mind right away. So I listened to this podcast. In this podcast, it was retelling the pogroms in Eastern Europe that led to early Zionism. And something that he referenced about these pogroms in Ukraine, Russia, was that they were cyclical, and the Jewish people would often say, you know what, this will die down like last time. It will die down. Just let's wait it out. And, the people did do that. It did die down, and it got fine again for these people. And then it would come back, and oftentimes stronger than the previous time. And that pattern continued all the way up till the Holocaust. So I just think that this is not like a cheery reaction to your question. It's to be vigilant and to consider that, and to see if it happens again, and to see if it's worse. And if so, it's to make a plan and a decision, sort of like the plan and the decision that the early Zionists made to escape the Russian Pale and move to the land of Israel. So, to me, I'm always like, is it time to go? Is it time to sell my Michael Jordan rookie card, get that money, and just bolt to Israel?
It's interesting what you're saying. I mean, you're saying it's a cyclical pattern. And look, we live in the diaspora. We know this. Every time there's a Gaza operation, this thing comes out and then it dies down.
Right.
This thing comes out and then this dies down. The question is, and you know what?
Yes.
After this,
and the answer was to take that into consideration and assess it. I'm not saying that there are pogroms here. I mean, there's anti-Semitic incidences, but you know what? A pogrom happened on October 7th in Israel, so it also complicates the question. is Israel the safe place to go? I still think it is, and I would go there.
No,
in a
I don't.
heartbeat.
I don't mean it like that. I think that if the
Yeah.
answer to the cyclical violence was, look, it's getting worse, and we might not be anywhere close to what it was before. It certainly, the world has learned where this leads, so we have a little bit of that on our side. But the answer certainly, as you said, it was Israel. The ultimate answer was Israel. We have a safe haven. That's what's going to save us eventually. Now we
And
have.
that's why it's so important that to defend Israel, because there are people, and I often used to think that, like, I used to think it was the right wing anti-Semitism that is trying to, like, kill Jews here, whereas the left is trying to end Israel, our safe place to go. But it doesn't look great here from the left either. Like,
Well, that's
so,
interesting. It's interesting. First of all, it's very different because, as you rightly said, there is Israel now. And what you said now was really interesting because obviously the right wing anti Semitism is like, guys, go. We don't want you here.
Yeah, like, get the fuck out of here.
We don't want, like, there is a place over there in the Middle East. Just go. We don't want you here. But as you said, which is something actually more worrying, is the left wing anti Semitism, which is not only attacking Jews because, as we spoke about last time, they see you as an elitist, white, colonial person, and as opposed to a minority, which you are a minority in America or England. They actually are also saying, that's not enough for us. We're actually going to take your insurance policy, which is Israel, and we're going to delegitimize and destroy that. So in a sense, they're even worse from the left wing because they're like, we'll attack you on both sides. But I think this is something that if the diaspora is to thrive, we have to deal with this ideology, these people that try to delegitimize us and try to attack us from the left. And that's why I asked what's the future? How do we attack it? And I think that's an interesting question that we will continue to explore throughout this
we're going to see how these Gen Zers, they're going to come into power. And I mean, there's a chance that these Western countries that we know and love are going to turn into like anti-capitalist Maoist states. And if that is the case, we have Israel.
Yeah, but then that's the problem. Israel lives in a globalized world. We can't just ignore and treat this incident like we treated, the right-wing anti-Semitism and like we'll just escape.
Yeah.
No, but we can't. What I'm saying is,
if the West becomes this Maoist, anti-capitalist world, like these Gen Zers seem to be craving, then we have bigger problems than just Israel. I mean, like, the West is down.
Of course, we have. No.
We're gonna like this is a bigger question. This is a global question. Like, we have to become aware of how demented these young people coming out of these universities are. I mean, I think people are waking up to it. There's people in America who spotlight this, and they have so many listeners and people who are worried about this. We just need to figure out how to.
But what I'm trying to say, though, I'm going to push back on you in saying that I don't think the answer, which is Israel, we all run away back to Israel, which is our insurance policy. I don't think that we can use that to defeat this ideology. We can use it to defeat the right wing anti-Semitism, but we need a new tactic to defeat this fundamentally evil, I would say, left wing anti-Semitism. We have to find a solution.
The solution is to shine a light on it, to shine a light on how corroded these institutions are, like university. And I think they're doing a good job of that themselves right now. I referenced the hearing with the university presidents. They're doing a great job of exposing themselves, and I think a lot of people are being exposed to how corroded these institutions are, these colleges, and even corporations.
I think this is something we need to explore as this conflict continues. And as we continue to chat about it, I think it's something that there isn't an easy answer. I think you're right that shining a light on it is the first thing. But I do believe eventually that Israel, if it, it has bigger fish to fry now, but eventually it does need to come to the diaspora's aid. But I think that we need to figure out as Jews in the diaspora, what are we going to do about this and how do we do it? Because I'll give you some really basic stuff. You don't want your kids, going to a workplace, and it might not be overt. But
or to college, like we talked about with Isaac.
But college is whatever. That's like a microcosm. It's like 3-4 years of your life. Of
course,
you don't want them to go into work and then somebody look. Ooh, I think that's a Jewish person. He probably supports Israel. He probably is, he lobbies. Right. He's probably this, whatever. Whatever these things are.
No, I hear what you're saying. I know that's scary, but guess what? I just thought of a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
Before October 7th, I kind of tried to remove myself, my identity from my professional life. I used to have Israeli Army on my resume, and at some point I'm like, I'm taking this off. I don't know how this can help me. Like, people are going to see this and think ill of me. And I took it off, and I would never go on a podcast and tell people how I feel about being a Zionist, about being in the army. And then October 7th happened, and it was a wake-up moment. And I was like, Dor, let's make a podcast just saying exactly how we feel and record our private phone conversations for the world to hear.
Well, I think what you're saying is really interesting, because you spoke at the beginning about these, these anti-Semitic waves. They come in cycles. And back in the day, back in the 1800s and before the Holocaust, people, they dealt with them and they put their head down again. And that's how they dealt with it. And then the answer was, we have a country, let's create an insurance policy. Now, what you're saying is, because obviously now we have to change tactic, and what you're saying is completely different to what they did. You're saying, I'm not going to put our head down. Yes, these cycles are going to come, but instead of putting our head down, now we're going to rise up and scream and say, no, we are here. This is who we are actually. I don't care what your perverted version of us is. This is who we are, and we're proud of who we are, and we're going to push back, which is completely different to what we used to do.
I don't know. Right. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but that was what my gut reaction was to do. I don't know if that's what everyone should do, but it's going to be interesting.
Well, it's a start. It's a start. It's a start. Yeah. It shows that the fight we're fighting is different now, and therefore our response has to be different to what it used to be. And I think that you're right. Maybe it's not the full response. Maybe it's not 100% the correct response, but it's certainly part of it. If you look at left-wing ideology, and what it does say is people should speak up and should represent themselves. So actually, what you're saying could be a big part of that answer, and we just need to find out how to do it effectively so it benefits us as a diaspora community.
Yeah, in the defense of the Russian Jews of the 1800s, they were up against people coming with clubs and just bludgeoning their families' heads, and we're up against these pathetic TikTok, no attention span Gen Zers who are just I'm not
saying that the tactic that they had. By the way, I think
I know. I just want to take a second to smear Gen Z, but it's not their fault. They have they didn't go to school during COVID. They're stunted. They're just messed up.
I think it's important what you said. I think we shouldn't. What we're saying is not that the people in in the 1800s did anything wrong. They came up with a solution, which was Israel. They didn't put their heads down because it was a bad thing. That was the tactic, and the tactic worked up until 1940 and 1939.
Because their opposition was different as well.
Yeah,
right.
I think that the problem we have here is completely different. Yes, they're not coming with pitchforks. They're not stronger than us physically, but they are potentially could be very powerful when it comes to the media, the workplace, place like that. So I think
could morph into a violent movement. It's not unprecedented in history. Also, the fact that they're championing Hamas means that they're not put off by violence, rape culture.
I think maybe we've started to crack what needs to be there. We're certainly going to not come up with the solution in a second. I think it's a problem for the whole diaspora community. But maybe you've put the first stone into what the solution is, and by identifying the differences of the threat, it can give us an indication of where the answer comes from.
All right, Dor. This has been a lively talk, and I think we're getting somewhere. And for our listeners out there, thank you so much for listening to this. Our listenership has been going up every week, and that's pretty cool. I'm kind of obsessed with refreshing to see how many people have listened. That's my own craziness. But speaking of that, a couple things. Please email us any questions you have. We might answer questions at twofreakedoutjews@gmail.com. And also, I had a good idea. Dor, are you still there?
I'm there, yeah.
I could have done this part alone. Anyways, my thing is, I know you all have group text chats with your families. Please send them this podcast, and just send it to your group chats, your Jewish group chats, your camp friends, your family, your friends from. You get what I'm saying, okay? Send it to Jews. Send it to your Jewish group chats. That's my
Why
request
only
from you.
Jews, Jeff? Why do you
Okay, send it to any group chat. Send it to any group chat. Good point, Dor. Okay, send it to your group chats, probably your Jewish ones, and then you know what? If you know me and you know Dor, text us and tell us you did it, and then Dor's gonna Venmo you.
I will not. Luckily, I live in England. I live in England. We don't even have Venmo, so I'm sorted.
Oh, okay. Well, Dor would have Venmoed you, but anyways, this was a great chat. Lila Tov, Dor.
Good night, Jeff.
My name's Jeff. I'm calling in from California.
My name's Dor, and I'm joining you from London.
Out of 16 million, we are 2.
Two freaked out Jews.